City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded September 6, 2023.
Well, good evening, everybody. Would like to call the September 6, 2023 Board of Park Commissioners meeting to order. And we'll do so, Dan, if you wouldn't mind calling the roll, please.
Freckman? Here. Disher? Here. Gladusky?
Here.
Alder-Kiemer?
Here.
McDonald?
Here.
O'Connor? Here. Shabilsky?
Here.
Alder Shores excused. Sorensen?
Here.
And Wynn.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. We'll move on to agenda item number 2, which is an approval of the August 2nd, 2023 meeting minutes.
Motion to approve is written.
We have a motion to accept as written. Is there a second?
Here.
Gladusky? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. Number 3, consideration of a Legacy Plaza project at Xenoff Park presented by the Stevens Point Softball Association. Mr. Disher, the floor is yours. If you wouldn't mind going to the podium and turn it over to you.
I guess our plan you have in front of you is kind of self-explanatory. The Softball Association was incorporated in 1974. We actually started in the fall of '73 with meetings to set things up. So we had talked about doing something at the ballpark for our 50th year, and then we lost a couple of really good people in our group that had been, one of them had been with me. I might be the only guy left who was there at the start in '73 actually. We lost one of the guys who was there with me for all the years except 2. So we just thought it'd be a great idea to honor those 2 guys along with our 50th year. And so we came up with a plan, talked with Dan, Alchemy Concrete, put things together, and that's where we are today.
Great. And those drawings are in the packet.
Yes.
And by the way, the plan also helps us improve our office building there with some new steps and some new sidewalks and new flagpole, so it'll be a nice addition to the ballpark.
Please.
I just had one question about it. It looks like a really nice plan. It looks like it's going to be a real attractive addition. But I wondered, I saw that you had new steps in there. I wondered if that could be made into a ramp instead, just to make that accessible.
I guess what we could do is talk to Alchemy. You know, the space is kind of limited for a ramp. I just don't think you can build a ramp straight up where the steps are. You're going to have to kind of make it
extend
long,
it a bit.
an extension. But I guess we could talk about that with Alchemy Concrete and see where we are and what it would cost us. We have a budget for the project at about $45,000, and we'll raise that money hopefully between now and I have a lot of begging to do again. I guess I'm getting good at that. Hopefully we'll raise that money by the time we want to have construction starting sometime. We're hoping in June, July. Depends what the contractor has to say about that. So it's something we'd look into.
Yeah, I'd like to see it looked into, because I think, you know, if you look at most buildings now, we try to make sure that they're handicap accessible, and I don't know if that building needs to be, but...
Well, the building used to be, by the way, Bill Zenoff's office at the Holiday Inn. We moved it in there all in one piece. If you've ever seen the tree next to the building with the big burl knot on it, that's because the building ran the tree over. But it's really a place for our staff, for our board meetings. A lot of softballs and softball equipment are stored in there. I don't know that it would need to be handicapped accessible. We've had, you know, people with crutches and canes get into the building. We've not seen a lot of need for that, but we'll again talk it over.
Okay, thank you.
Consider it.
Other questions? Otherwise, Dan, I know you've got some comments to make.
I was just going to add a few things. So I think the first thing that Mike glossed over, but I just want to call attention to, 50 years is pretty remarkable. So if you go down to Xenoff, I've had the pleasure of getting to know Mike and Matt well and spending a lot of time down at the park. just learning the history of how it came to be and what was built there. I just want to say kudos to your association, your group, for all the work they do. They make our lives a lot easier from a staff standpoint, just helping organize calendars, who's there, how they do it. So congratulations on 50 years. That was really, it doesn't happen many places. For an organization to be around that long and to see that type of longevity, it really speaks to the volume of the leadership that both the Dishers and all of the members of their board and committees and the people have been involved with for the years. The other things I'll let you know is in terms of how this works, in case you're wondering from a policy standpoint, recognition is what we're talking about essentially. So the plaza would be permanent, obviously for the life of what the concrete of things are, but otherwise it's recognition essentially. So, again, what it looks like 50 years from now might be different. It's not necessarily a perpetuity item. It's really based on the recognition, the fundraising, SPSA leading that. So from a staff standpoint, what we've looked at, I will add on the ADA question, it's a good one, but the building itself is not compliant interior. So I'll aid you, Mike, in that conversation. I think what we can probably look at is we can talk to our building department too if there's a certain percentage when it triggers and doesn't trigger. I think if we were to look at the steps, honestly, the bigger question is you'd hate to have a doorway that you can get into, but if you can't do anything in the building. So we might want to earmark it to say when we do it or whenever that upgrade happens, maybe when the building's remodeled, that's a component of that. And maybe this could still move forward. Steps could get them access currently, and we'd earmark to say the next upgrade on the building, we do the whole thing. But I'll work with you. We can talk to the inspectors too. So otherwise, from the staff standpoint, this does not change the flow of traffic going from one location to the other inside the park. It's going to be very visible for everyone when they're going to the concession stand or moving between the ball fields. We did think this was a really applicable project. We think there's a lot of interest in the community. So staff is very supportive, and again, to the association's lead, we're going to help with a little bit of labor for us, moving some flagpoles and things, but we're very comfortable with the proposal.
Okay, great.
Question, is there a door on the other side of that building?
There's one on the back side of the
On
building.
the back side, yeah. So I mean, if rather than destroy the looks of this, you could always put a ramp on the back if you
Well,
need
if you're familiar with Xenop Park, there's probably from the front of our building to the back of the building, probably a 5-foot drop-off. Remember, that used to be a swamp.
Yeah.
And the city filled that in with a bunch of stuff from a road project. So it would be a ramp that would, I mean, you have to stretch it out some to climb it up 4 or 5 feet.
I think there's 7 steps out the back door
Yeah.
in my head.
And then we have a drainage problem coming from that end with the water that doesn't drain off properly. We've talked about that a whole bunch of times. Kind of like a little creek back there.
Are there other questions? I guess, Liz, just to check, are you comfortable with the approach we're going to take with this
Yes.
in terms of the ADA compliance then?
Definitely.
Okay, great, thank you.
I would just like to make a comment. I'm going to abstain from voting because I'm the president of the organization, but I'm 100% on board with it.
I'd move to approve this.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve it as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alder Kiemer. Is there any additional discussion or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we've got one abstention. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Mike, thank you. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 4, which is a consideration of the Guns N' Hoses Military Memorial adjacent to Riverfront segment of the Green Circle. And Chief Kuso and others are here, but we'll turn the mic over to you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm going to have Tracy actually come up here as well. She's been a big part of this. So just a little background. Back in 2014, the police department and fire department wanted to do something for veterans. And so we started this softball game between the two agencies, and it ended up building into Plover, coming onto the fire department, or onto the police department and the sheriff's department, and then the fire department and Plover's fire department. And over that, since 2014, we've raised over $250,000, and we've, for the Dream Flight that actually just took place last week, we've done the Honor Flight, sponsored several people for the Honor Flight. Emergency services for veterans we've actually done here as well, and a bunch of other foundations that the money's gone to. And I want to point out, law enforcement and firefighting, it's not the same as military. We wanted to come up with something to show that we honor those that have served, those that are currently serving, those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. So back in June of 2022, we all got together as a committee and started talking, and we said, hey, wouldn't it be really cool to build a monument honoring all of those individuals, all those veterans, all those people that are currently serving, with some money that we can actually get with donations. So we kind of started talking about it, and we have veterans on our committee. Tracy's a veteran, Chief Moody is a veteran, Chris Marshall is a veteran, Dwayne, who's a veteran. And we started developing this monument together and coming up with different ideas over the last year. We wanted to kind of keep it quiet and not show everybody what we're trying to implement. We started working with Hartle Monument, and working with them has been phenomenal. We came up with a really, really cool design that we're very proud of. In fact, if you look at the design, the officer on the left is actually one of our officers here. That is actually going to be all black marble, and then the officer on there will actually be kind of a stone color, so no color. And then the firefighter on the right is a firefighter, but that's actually Chief Moody's hat that's on the firefighter. So it represents local fire department and local law enforcement. The middle there is actually the only thing that's going to be in color, and those are the seals of the military. So we talked about it. Obviously, we knew that we had to find the money to do it. I will admit the sheriff actually reached out to several individuals, which are listed on there, and we're able to come up with the $90,000 that we needed to build this monument. So after we were able to raise the money, we started not arguing, but kind of communicate on where we'd want to put this. Obviously, Plover wants it. The county wants it. But Guns and Hoses started in the city, okay? And so we want it here, and we're very proud of it. So we started looking around at different areas. We kind of thought, we played the game at Bucol Park, but Bucol Park can be developed. In fact, they're talking about the streets department moving out of there and either selling that or developing it into Moore Park. So we're not really sure about that location. Veterans Memorial Park, we kind of talked about that, and we kind of thought if it was just the middle part of that monument, I think that'd be immaculate there. But since it's us honoring the veterans, we just started talking about it, and we thought, you know what, Gunner does a memorial service for Memorial Day down at the park at Piffner every year, and we're there honoring the veterans. They have the bell down there, and I talked to Gunner. I showed him the design because he was instrumental in doing the development of the flagpole, and he also got a monument scribe there as well to kind of explain the monument that's currently there, which is for disabled veterans of the World War. And so we talked about it, and with that one, the location, that one's at an angle at about 45 degrees, the flag's right in the middle, and we all kind of talked and thought, hey, listen, this would be really cool to put on the other side, and so when they come there, they can see both these monuments. They can go to the bell, especially on Memorial Day and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the history behind it. Again, we've been kind of keeping it a secret because we don't want everybody to see what it's going to look like. And so I apologize for that. But what I'm looking for is to see approval of the location. Again, Gunner's here. If you'd like to talk to him as well, because I also don't want to step on toes. I don't want to step on the fact that he had done the flagpole. I want to make sure he was okay with it, because if he wasn't, we'd find someplace else to put it. But he approved, is very happy for us. And so I'm looking for approval to actually put it there. And I know that's wanted space. The other thing is that's right behind Chase Bank, so it's not part of the park that'll ever get developed. And so we're hoping that you guys will all approve the fact or hope that we can actually put it there in that area. And if you guys have any questions, myself and Tracy will definitely help answer.
Thanks, Chief. I'll just add, so I learned of this, we talked, I think, briefly last year about kind of possibilities, and I'll echo Chief's comments. We had looked at really 3 locations primarily when we talked about it. Veterans Memorial was the first one, and for the reasons stated, that was kind of the reason that wasn't necessarily looked at. We had talked about real briefly about the other side of the river, but really why these kind of led in is Gunner's initiative when he had kind of updated his sign placard, and we had moved the marker that was already by the bell had just kind of finished up, I think, a couple months before our discussion. So it kind of fell where it was like this was ongoing. We talked, kind of they communicated together. And if you look at the site, the chief was kind of mentioning, you can kind of see that this is angled in. It almost faces, if you're going down the roadway, like across the bridge or coming across, that it's kind of facing outward. The proposal for this is to kind of, I don't know if you want to create a spot where you'd stop off, but you kind of see it kind of enclose the area. Because there is some items that are already related to the military and to some military history in this location, we've not identified this spot as any other type of development for parks. And we also, right now, we don't know if Chase Bank will be there forever, if someday that becomes something different. There was a master plan done by the city preliminary in 2019, if you recall. I think it was called the Downtown Area Targeted Master Plan. It showed a bunch of other development in this location potentially at that time. Again, kind of just conceptually, if the land ever became available. In the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, we don't identify this space for anything for park usage. Really, our primary programming functions are up in the park itself. So the pros to the proposal is it's great collaboration between the Parks Department, the fire department, the police department, the sheriff's office, the neighboring police and fire departments that are involved. So staff's recommendation when we've looked at is just that we thought it was applicable, that it'd be great collaboration between the departments. It's not a space we're competing for from a programming standpoint. There certainly is a layer to this of, what can go along the riverfront, what can't, and not insensitive to that. I think that's probably the bigger overarching item that if the commission wanted to talk about future. But I just want to let you know that right now we don't have anything planned for this. It would, I had a discussion today with one of the commission members about like fireworks. There is a location where we lose a little bit of seating for that. Obviously, the green circle gets biked, and there's a lot of traveling eyes in this location. So there's probably pros and cons to every location. This is incredibly visible, and it has a loose tie due to some of the things that are in that location already, or pretty, I guess, almost as much of a tie as a couple of the other locations. So based on everything as a whole, again, and the great collaboration between the departments, I'd like to see this move forward. I'd recommend approval just from where I sit, but I certainly would be sensitive to the fact that if we wanted to talk about monuments and markers long-term, as staff, I'd be more than willing to help put something together if the commission would like that. So I just wanted to add that, but really want to give kudos to their committee about great transparency, communicating behind the scenes as we looked at the different locations, and what a remarkable design. I think that's really cool too. I think there'll be a lot of people that will see a lot of benefit to visiting this once it's done too.
Liz and then John.
Congratulations on the work that you did on this. It's really, it's obvious that a lot of thought has gone into this project. You'd mentioned that you kept it secret, and you really did a good job of keeping it secret, because the first thing I ever heard about it was when we got our agenda and the agenda notes for the meeting tonight. So, of course, I had to go down and take a look at the site, and then I did talk with the director as well, because I thought, well, it's honoring the veterans, but it's also honoring the Guns and Hoses organization. So I thought we should maybe take some time and look at some other possible sites. Like one of the places I thought was perhaps in front of the fire department on Division Street. That's a high traffic area, and they've got a lawn space there. Or out here in front, there's a high traffic area out here, and you get a lot of visibility there as well here on Michigan Avenue. Also, because it's Guns and Hoses, and what Guns and Hoses usually does is a sporting event. And I thought Zinoff Park, I'm not sure where it would fit with everything else we've got going there, but I wondered about Zinoff, and you've already answered the question on Veterans Park and why that's not a good idea. But we also have the Admiral Grant Park, that's just south of the bridge, and there's already kind of a monument there recognizing the bridge being named for the paratroopers. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of possibilities, and when you look at the plan, which is very well thought out and done, this is a 6.5-foot tall black granite memorial. And once it's in, I think it's probably going to be in the place that we place it for quite a long time. So just as a member of this committee, I'd like for us to take a little bit more time, like perhaps table this and look at it next month for a decision. So everybody will get a chance to perhaps review this site and review the other sites to see if there might be some other place that this could be placed. I think that's really where I'm coming from on this. I'd like to, I guess, saying that, I'd like to make a motion to table it for 1 month and make a firm decision in a month on this proposal.
There's a motion, and then
I'd second
Sean is a second. Is there any further discussion? I know, John, you had your hand up. I'm not sure if you had
Chief
questions.
Kuso, I guess, you've heard these other areas, I guess, what's your thought on
So we actually thought about the fire department as well, but the fire department, if you recall, several years ago, ended up having a digital sign that was actually put out there to relay information to individuals. That ended up causing a lot of accidents, so that was actually removed from the front of their yard. And then, again, the police department, same thing. We don't want something here where people are going to slow down and actually look while they're in their vehicles because of accidents. And with PJs, with the traffic and the high flow, it's really bad out here in the mornings and the afternoons. And again, with the collaboration, it's not just the Stevens Point Police Department or the Stevens Point Fire Department. It was Plover Fire Department. It was Portage County Sheriff's Department. Plover Police Department. It's all of us working together. So we wanted to select a location that everybody would actually go to. And that's the location that we chose.
I guess, Chief, I'll add, I think conceptually, I get no sense at all that there's a concern about this concept. I think, to your point in terms of the more comprehensive plan, if that bank comes for sale, we're going to be moving a monument. So I think we do have to look a little bit longer term on that, and I think that's what I think Liz is asking, is for us to get a chance to maybe look at a couple of other options that will recognize the work that you all are doing, give that monument the space it deserves, but without having to worry about having to get rid of it in 10 years and move it somewhere else. So I think from a process standpoint, it is not unusual for this board to approve concepts and then approve locations. So I think we have done that with other things in the past, and can guarantee that I think your commitment, Liz, based on what I heard you say, is that we'll have an answer next month. But I do think that there is an interest in looking at other alternatives that both give the space it needs and deserves, but also takes into some consideration some of the other things that we might have to look at down the road and look in a little bit bigger picture. And like I said, if that bank ever gets a for sale sign in front of it, I think the one conversation I don't know that we necessarily want to have is where are we putting the monument. But yeah,
Why would that location matter if the bank sells? Is it city property, or is it bank property that the city gets to put stuff on?
I think it's all hypothetical, right? So what's the best way to answer that question? If the bank went for sale, I think there's probably lots of conversations of what it could be. Conceptually, all that's shown is that if the city was to try and could afford it and would have the ability to redevelop it, there's a targeted master plan that just shows some other structures that could go in that location. So high level conceptual drawings is what it is now.
Yeah.
So there's that's the best way I can probably answer it. So.
We're looking at the possibilities at this point before we make a decision, I think.
I think they've already looked at different sites, and the one thing I'm impressed with the fact that it's in a passive recreation area, where it's the type of thing where somebody's, instead of being like here or at the fire department, people are driving by. There's not many people walking, where we get a lot of traffic on the trail, down there, and where I think more people can see it and actually spend a little time and look at it, and so I think it would be a perfect location. And the other thing, I think the city's going to have money to buy that bank property in the future. And is there a rumor that it's up for sale or anything?
No, again, ultimately, I think just my 4 years of history here, I think there's always been a kind of a conversation that the city always thought, boy, that was precious land, right? That's all I've ever heard, just conversations there. So, no, I think it's really just talking about what ifs, essentially, is what that conversation would be. But to that end, if the bank ever went for sale, it could be bought by someone else too, right? The bank could stay there forever. The bank could sell to somebody else. It could become a restaurant. It could become a hotel. It could become anything, right? So even to that end, we don't have any assurance. Number one, it might never come for sale. Number two, if it did go for sale, it could be sold to somebody else. So it is hard. If we were sitting here today, just with what we know today, you know, in a staff capacity, I would say we don't necessarily plan for if the bank would sell, because it could just become another private resident, you know, private lot next to it. Our plan, what we've done so far in the like a comprehensive outdoor rec plan, is just say that, you know, that property is of interest to the Parks Department. It's identified, I think, in the riverfront plan that was put together several years ago. That's referenced in our corp. So it says we're interested in that parcel if it came for sale. And it's been named as we're interested for many years, just because the bank's been there for a long time.
And I think, Mike, to that point, it sounds like what Liz is proposing and Sean has seconded is just an opportunity to look at all the options that we have at this point and then make a decision next month, so.
I just want to say, I'm on this committee as well, newer on this committee, but I do know that a lot of work has been put into a location. I mean, the locations that have been discussed have been looked at, and like they said, this ties in with the memorial that's there instead of going across the street to the other memorial or any of the other memorial areas in town. This one makes the most sense. And it ties the whole memorial that's there together into more of a whole memorial instead of kind of a half memorial, I guess.
I mean, it seems like the committee is in favor of this. There isn't a question. Are we just delaying this for a month? Should we give them permission to do this and then as a motion allow us to plan the future of what we want to do with these memorials at that area? Or do we just want to hold it off?
No, I think I guess to your point, I think the question is do we want to approve the concept and then table the discussion on a potential location for another month? Is that reasonable, I think, from a process standpoint?
So I think from a process standpoint, right now, what we're discussing is the motion to
Correct.
table everything for 1 month to revisit next month. That was the motion that was
Yes.
stated.
Correct.
So essentially, if the commission wanted to approve concept but table the location, from a process standpoint, I think you'd have to vote on this action to table everything first. But to make that separate motion, essentially, you'd have to decide how you want to proceed with this, but you'd need to make another motion
Right,
for
we have
another
to-
piece
so
of
we
it.
can't amend this motion then.
Or you could amend it,
Amend
but
it,
you'd have
yeah.
to vote on the amendment. You'd have to make an amendment, vote on the amendment first, and then vote on the motion as amended second. Or you could friendly ask.
Right,
for
you could
the
just do a
second
friendly.
And the first to be
Yeah.
taken back, and then you could do a friendly amendment. But that's the two paths forward that I.
Before you vote, think of it this way. All right, you've got a strip of land on either side of the bridge. The bridge is the 101st Airborne. Admiral Grant, I was kind of with that too. You got a strip of land that's dedicated to veterans, okay? This is the only place for that monument, all right? It's just a strip of land. I don't care if the bank is sold. It would be nice if it was sold to a restaurant. That would be great. Better yet, we could always use a veterans hall here. But it's just a strip of land that will stay a park forever. When they put that flagpole in, they hit water at 4 feet. You're not going to build on it, okay? It's a good strip of land. Many people walk by. It's a good place to reflect all sorts of things, okay? It makes all the sense in the world not to table this. It's a simple, all in favor, say aye. It really is. It is absolutely perfect, okay? Yeah, it's going to need a little bit of work to put this monument in there because there's a slight slope, but it's slight. Anything can be overcome, okay? In 50 years, who knows, this river goes nuts and now everything is part of the river. That's nature. We can't plan for that, okay? If it happens, it happens. But then you got to move everything off that riverfront. So in this future, everybody say aye and we can continue with this project. That's it. That's in a nutshell. Okay? If you got questions, shoot them at me. Somebody's got a question.
I've just got a lot of comments, but I
Go ahead.
We have a motion on the table that I think we should probably address, because what you're asking us to do is separate than the motion that's on the table right now.
I realize that.
So I think we need to first address that. I appreciate your passion. I mean, again, as part of this process, that is an area that we'll consider, but I think my concern is that typically it is not unusual for this board to come in and approve a concept and then confirm a location as a second step. So what you're asking us to do in this particular case, especially with the short notice, is to approve something you've decided upon without the board getting feedback on it, and that's what we're trying to do. So I think that's the only concern I've got. I think there are other potential options that this board has the purview to consider. So do we think, could we end up in a month that's the right place? Absolutely. But part of it is there are other options, and this board is responsible for monitoring all assets and parks that are developed, both partners and private and public. And that's what we're trying to do. So I think what Liz is asking us to do is to take a month to look at that and see if there are other options. We're not tabling it. We're not saying no. But this board has asked for additional information as part of these processes for elements and parks. So, and I think that's what we're talking about right now.
Well, I
There's a staff recommendation to approve.
like to grab that bull by the horns, and I don't give up.
No, we appreciate that.
So, to me, this is the only way that it can be done. The only way. Thank you.
We appreciate that feedback. Liz?
I think you should understand that most of us just saw this information on Friday.
I realize.
So you've had a lot of time to think about it and digest it and consider other sites. But like I said before, this is really going to be quite permanent. I mean, a 6-foot black marble, 6.5-foot black marble monument, you don't move very easily, so.
You don't move any of those things down there usually.
So, again, John?
I guess if we're going to table it, that's fine, but I guess I'd like to see something come up as far as future plans for Pfiffner on these kind of, along with the same time. I mean, obviously, we're going to have other requests, and I think we need to address that before that comes, so.
So in terms of that, I don't know if we need to take action to that separately, because again, the question that has been called is
But for the future.
tabling, yes, but I think in terms of, it might be worth noting, Dan, that needs to be an agenda item for these kind of requests moving forward.
You bet.
All right, so we have a motion to table the proposal as presented for 1 month. We have a second.
I would just like to note that staff, the city staff has recommended to approve. So the city's done their legwork too.
I just have one question real quickly. If a month is taken and ultimately we look at the site, it comes back, in terms of a construction schedule, what did you guys have in mind, just out of curiosity?
We can adjust that.
Okay. So from a committee standpoint, if we get together, look over these extra sites, come back with, choice 1, choice 2, et cetera, you guys can still adjust to a scheduled timeline for that?
We'd have to.
I just want to make sure you don't have
Yeah.
somebody lined up where it all of a sudden throws the project where it can't happen this year.
No, we can obviously adjust it. That's,
So-
I'll be honest, I'm worried about Plover. They want it, and that's what I'm worried about the most. So,
The committee's pushing really hard. We realized that the timeline was probably not the best, right, to get it to you, and that was an oversight on our part, right? And so, but if it got approved rather quickly, our plan was to have it set and be ready for dedication on October 11th. So given the next committee meeting, that's not going to be possible because we won't be able to set the slab and get our generous donation from our crane company to help us set it. They were going to set it for free. The concrete was going to be donated for free. So we just need to go back to our vendors and say, hey, we're going to need another month because we got to wait for this to be approved for the location.
Given that, I guess, ultimately, if it was tabled and a special meeting was to be called just for this item, could both be achieved potentially? Let's just say this got delayed 10 more days versus till next month. I'm not going to speak for the board, it'll be your decision, but one thing I would offer is, while the motion says the next month, you certainly could friendly amend it to say next meeting. You could definitely have some conversations, take a walk. We could try to have this discussion sooner if the board could meet. I would just offer that too. To Commissioner Disher's point, certainly I recommend approval. I love to see these things happen, but I want to echo that I am sensitive to the fact that we get various requests from all sorts of markers, monuments, and permanent recognition in our park system. And I will just tell the board, I certainly respect and will follow the wishes of the board to say we want to look at this, because things that are permanent do last forever. So it's certainly, you know, there'll be many people that come after us that look at that area, and I see both sides of that. So certainly I'm comfortable if the commission does move forward with this. You know, and I'd love to give everybody the green light, whatever I can, but I think it's not unreasonable at all to say, hey, we're going to take 15 more days or something to take a look at it before something does land for 25, 30, 40, 50 years. So certainly want to work with you as much as I can, but I would just say that I have no problem with us having another conversation, a little more review, and then trying to see what we can do.
So how would we vote on that, Director? If we wanted to change, do we vote no on the?
So if you don't want to table it at all, you would vote no to this, right? And then it wouldn't be tabled, and then you could take another action. You could do a friendly amendment to remove the month part to say next meeting. If the second would friendly that, we could just change that verbiage. You could vote yes to that, to then have another meeting for it. But essentially, if this motion passes, there'd be no other action on it this evening until the next meeting or next month, based on what the motion in the second is officially going to be.
So we are in the position to entertain a friendly amendment to change from next month's meeting to the next scheduled meeting?
Yes. If the second and the motion are okay with that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that'd be great.
All right, so the amended motion is to table this?
The motion to table it to the next scheduled meeting and revisit at that time would be the motion in the
Right.
second.
Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll call the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Here, nay?
Okay.
We're going to stay in there. So 7-1 with one abstention. Okay. Motion passes.
Yeah, and then the commitment, Dan, will be that we will get a special meeting called specifically for this,
Yep.
pending review of a couple of sites.
I can
and
send
get
out
you
some
back.
availability to everybody to find out what everyone's available and I'll coordinate with them.
And then, Tracy, it'd be really helpful to know what your drop dead end date would be for this to get it done,
Before
so,
it snows.
okay, well, let's,
This is the
well, that could be next
could be
week or it
Halloween.
could be January, so.
I think the concerning part is, and we deal with this with our game, which is, by the way, on Sunday at 1 o'clock if you want to come. And so we always worry about weather, right? And so if it's too wet, we can't pour the concrete, we can't set it, right? So we are dealing with the weather and the elements and those sort of things. And so the thought was if we could get it, and again, oversight on our part, so again, we apologize for that. The thought was to get it set so that way we didn't have to worry about the rainy October, November, cool weather. I mean, we've had a crazy year anyways, so who knows what's going to happen. And then with that dedication, looking at October 11th to do that. But again, we will adjust our timeline based on the committee's feedback.
Is, because we've got to look at a special meeting, now help us understand exactly kind of, if you were looking, the decision needs to be made by which date to allow you to maintain a reasonable timeline, because I think that's going to push in terms of how we set a meeting, don't
They
you
have
think?
to go to
Dan?
council too, don't they, on this?
It'll go along with the consent agenda, yep.
Okay.
So we have to meet before council, which is,
That's a good idea.
Is that
Let me
September
put my
26th?
heads together with the committee, and
Okay.
I'll come back to everybody, because I think otherwise we're going to get too far into the
Yeah,
weeds of
that's fine.
schedule,
I like
so,
getting in
yep.
the weeds sometimes. But I think
That's
what we
okay.
want to do is be cognizant of having this meeting in time to be able to give
For sure.
the response
City
to allow you to
council,
do what you
yeah.
need to. Because again, I heard the word plover. We want to make sure that
Our
it's. we
committee
get-
is very divided, and we had a great conversation about why we want to place it here. Part of it is the former Stevens Point Police Chief Kevin Reuter. I mean, he was instrumental in starting this entire thing, and so we want to keep it in the Stevens Point community, and our committee has agreed. Again, that was very interesting conversation. But I know the monument should be done September 26th, and then we're going to move rather quickly. Certainly not get too far ahead because, creating monuments can certainly be a precious task, so.
Well, but again, that timeline helps us in terms of action we need to take. So it's really helpful for you to kind of clarify that.
Thank you for considering.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. And if you hold a special one, we
it-
definitely appreciate that.
Again, conceptually, I think this board is fully supportive of it. I think we just want to take a little time on just to make sure the location is the right spot.
Absolutely, I understand.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, moving on to the next agenda item, update from Ann.
Hello, everyone.
not a thing yet.
All right. Pool season 2023, very successful, a lot of fun. We kicked off our 10-week season one day earlier than planned. The weather was right and our guards were ready, so we were planning to open up June 3rd, but decided to open up Friday night, June 2nd, after school, and had a lot of happy families that attended that early session. And then we ended our last day for humans on August 14th, followed by our new event, the Dog Swim, on August 15th before starting our closing down process. So what we did for getting ready for the pool, we had our capital improvement project. You want to advance, Dan? There you go. Our guardhouse, as everyone knows, the pool facility is aged, and that pool guardhouse is block work that was seeing a lot of cracks and fissures and creating some dangerous circumstances for patrons, where the block was actually moving away from itself and its supports. So we had Point Masonry folks come in and remove a bunch of block and replace what they could, and we repainted the building so it's now in a safer and prettier condition. The paint was bubbling off, so we did a lot of scraping as well, and had our staff paint the building. So that's how we kicked off opening in May. We got some good weather, so we could sneak that project in before the season instead of after the season. So that was good. We had a bunch of events, like we always do. We had our Tube and Toy Nights this year. We had 2 more than last year, and those were really well received. We had our free swims, sponsored by community organizations and businesses, 1 more than last year with a total of 10. And you can see all those donating to that cause and allowing for a free session, typically on a Saturday morning, while we open the pool for 2 hours free of charge for whoever wants to come in. We did have 1 Friday night free swim this year, and that was well attended, and we got it in right before a thunderstorm came through. So that was very nice for that donor who was actually on site and gave away some freebies and whatnot. This year, by request, for a Senior Appreciation Day, we had 3 of those, 1 each month, and I think that was well received as well, although unfortunately I don't have a good count on how many seniors came through the door. A little bit of miscommunication with my staff, but I know that people did utilize that day and got some positive feedback, so I imagine as we continue that in future years, that will only grow in popularity. We do still do our private rentals, our parties in the evenings, and our scuba classes. We collaborate with Dive Point Scuba, and they come in and run their classes there. And the private parties are more popular than ever. We have, I think I counted close to 20 parties throughout the season, so that was really successful. And a nice option for folks to gather in the summer. We had a big staff this year, total of 28, 15 guards, 7 head guards, 6 cashiers, and 1 maintenance helper. And a great staff it was. Everybody got along, so no staffing issues, which is always nice. We spend a lot of time doing in-service training with our staff. We have 4 different trainings throughout the season, just reviewing, emergency procedures and honing in skills on saves. One new thing that we started this year, and by we I mean my coworker Greg Trudell, who spends a lot of time at the pool with staff. He got this idea from the aquatics board that he serves on, is the red ball drill. So you have a red ball, and anytime when the pool is open to the public, sometimes we'll sneak it in with a patron, and they'll just toss that ball in the pool, and that lifeguard has to react, and Greg's always kind of hiding in the shadows, and he's monitoring how they react, timing it, and giving feedback, and so the staff has, been live drills, just to make sure that they're sharp and paying attention. So it became a game. Everybody got nervous and was always, on point, I would say, watching for that red ball. This year we did have 10 saves, one up from last year. You can see that in the corner picture, those silver stars. So we have our save stars that we award our guards when they jump in and pull somebody out. And then those red ball drills, you'll see all those stars too. So we know who's been subjected to that drill and who hasn't. So all in all, a safe year, a good year by all those counts. For attendance overall, we saw a bit of a decrease from last year, and I can't say exactly why that is. We had more Boys and Girls Club kids on site. The free swims were, really well attended. We did have, I was counting earlier, 18 lap swims that were closed due to low temperatures or rain, and then 8 full days that we did close as well due to weather. One due to Gerke construction, lack of water, and then we did also have to close one day for a new event in my resume, which is a Code Brown. So we dealt with that fecal incident, and that was a learning experience for all of us. But a good one indeed to know what to do and go through the motions just to keep us on top of all those procedures and keeping everybody healthy. We sold more family passes than we did in 2022, and of those family passes, we had less punch-ins this year. So again, I can't really explain the why, but these are the numbers I pull out of our point-of-sale system. So I think they're mostly accurate, although some human error might be involved with cashiers and different things. I wanted to show this video. Dan, if you want to play that. This was made by our media department. John Quirk and Sarah came over with their drone and photography equipment and put together this nice little promotional video for us. Just, some eye candy for the promotions there. And overall, a successful year. There's always improvements to be made at the pool, but thankfully this year we didn't have many major repairs. We do have some purchases planned to round out our year and to help accessibility. We're going to buy some stairs so folks that might not be able to use the ladder comfortably can get in and out of the pool. But other than that, a great year, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
John?
What's the long-term for the pool? Are we planning on changing? I guess what I hear is, future aquatic centers, where are we going with that?
Right, so Dan can take it away.
So I'm going to take that question last, if that's okay. So first, I just want to mention a couple things. First off, in that attendance, you might have noticed, we do track the non-resident resident. That was a directive from the board here a couple years ago. Obviously, we're not IDing children, and we're not asking specifics, but you do see that overwhelming majority are showing that they're saying that they're residents. So it is great to see that our community is using it. We do get some people that come from out of town, but there is a great deal of residents that are using it. So that's fantastic. Overall, great season. As you can imagine, we have had some overly hot days. We had weather all over the place early on. I think when you look at the promo video, if you visited the pool, if you look at our website, Ann and Greg have done a great job with kind of a fresh new look. If you look at kind of how we communicate to the public compared to how we had for a number of years. The schedule is also different. It's easier to find on the website. It was not the same we did the same schedule year after year, and Ann and Greg have done a really great job of kind of talking through, hey, how does this work? What can we fit in? A lot of communication with the Boys and Girls Club to kind of have that collaboration. So the pool also, I will tell you, my first summer made me cringe from a safety standpoint, just because I had a little bit of aquatics training in my previous years, and Greg and Ann have just done a tremendous job with the red ball drill. Greg took his certification to become a lifeguard, spent a lot of time making sure they understand what the guards are doing and they can supervise what the guards are doing. That is not what was happening for a number number of years. So that's a big kudos to both Ann and Greg for all their time they've put in. I can confidently tell you the stack of papers they have for when we have, near drownings, or we have reports, or we save somebody, things of that nature, the reporting is spot on, they're paying attention to it, they're talking about it, and that's how you stop those things from happening as best you can. Obviously, you can't, stop it entirely. Things can happen, but not having those trainings is where mistakes happen, and I feel much more confident sitting here as director saying that Ann and her team are doing everything they can to make sure they're prepared for that, so kudos for that, too. To go back to the question, the thing about our pool is it is awesome, right? It's great that we have it. It's a great community asset, but our comprehensive outdoor rec plan has identified this as a site that is a major need for us to consider next. What do we do next? We've put a bunch of money into this the last 5 years with fixing the mechanical room, doing some work on the slide, and basically we're at a point where now we need to decide, are we planning for a future aquatic facility? This will be a future discussion for the Park Commission and the council, but are we planning to do something that's more similar to our neighboring communities? Are we going to try to continue to pump money into this facility, or some sort of blend in between? So I think our corp has identified, based on the surveys from our residents, that they want something more in time with, or more current with the times. But everything costs money. Our budgets are tight. The alders are going to see that with the Finance Committee next week, which I'll talk about in the director's report. So I think our next item is going to be, all right, as we start to unpack sections of the corp for things like the Buchholz Beach House, the Iverson Beach House, the pool, the list goes on, right? All of these priorities, we've kind of got a big project going with the Willet, it's a huge project. We're moving then to the Ceramore Park Pavilion, and we have already queued up the Plover River Crossing. Those are our immediate, this is what we're doing, and we've identified. But these are some big items that we're going to have to tackle as a commission, and I'll be looking for some guidance from this board as we start laying out capital budgets. And we're not talking hundreds of thousands, we're talking millions. So when we start getting into that type of stuff, we're going to have to be identifying if we have user groups, key stakeholders, fundraisers, things of that nature. That's how communities are getting these things done. I believe our community can do that. It's just a matter of, do we want to do that? How are we going to do it? And going from there. And there's certainly partners like the Boys and Girls Club that we neighbor with, the schools, stuff like that we need to talk to and be part of that conversation. And the pool's been here since, I'm going to get this year wrong.
So I had a resident reach out. There was a snippet of a paper from 1958 found where he, as a young boy, was at the ribbon cutting with Donald Copps, and I don't know if it was Donald Copps himself, but bent over, and he was behind him and pushed him in the pool. And so then he had to go in and get him. So it was this big to-do, and they caught it, and it was in the paper. But the date was in question. And on our website, we have the history, and it says 1951. And he was very sure that that was not correct. And so through working with the engineering department and finding plans, we believe that it was actually 1958. So we'll look to update that website eventually. But yeah, that was a fun little side sleuthing that we had to do.
So we're facing 7 decades of this essentially, and it's what other communities have beat us to in terms of, hey, we time to upgrade. So I think that's a conversation we'll definitely be having. So short answer is, if we want the aquatic facility that I think residents are experiencing in other communities and going to other communities for, we're going to have some hard discussions and start doing some planning.
I think we can learn from their mistakes that they've made.
Yeah.
We beat him to the pool, though.
What's that?
We had the first pool.
I guess, is it usual for a pool to last 65 years without either complete renovation or complete destruction and rebuild?
I do know, especially when you get into the Madison regions, Milwaukee regions, there's pools going that distance. Usually what ends up happening is they face a capital thing like we face, where it's $300,000 to change over the gutter system, to get into the mechanical rooms. Now, we did spend, I think it was $100 and some thousand on the one mechanical room. I think we spent $40,000 on the pool. So we've done some heavy lifts, but they've not been the $400,000, $350,000, $500,000 items. But all it takes is some undermining of the pool itself. Now, we've done good redoing the exterior of the pool with the replastering. We stayed up to date on some of that, and that's kudos to the staff for staying on top of it. But all it takes is something like that from a maintenance standpoint to slip a little bit. And if something with the pool shell gets undermined, that's a lot of times what forces pools to have to do something sooner. The mechanical room, you start to weigh that. Are we going to put $300,000 more into this in 10 years, or are we going to do something different? That's when a lot of communities have done it. So it is common that pools don't make money. I'll just tell you, municipal pools just don't. It's a community service. I'm not familiar. The first year a pool's built, they do great. They're jam-packed. People come in, they're super excited. They are a money pit after. However, they're a great community asset, which is why we're fortunate to have one and our community uses it. You know, and that's why I'm a huge advocate that we have it. Every child should know how to swim. We should provide that outlet for them to come use it. With that said, from a business standpoint, that's usually why a lot of councils and things too get into a place where they say, we're going to fund X, and then they get some, you know, some stakeholders to say, you're going to have to go find the rest. That way you've got both private, public input, not unlike a lot of our other projects that we've done. Now, we've not had that user group step up yet, but somehow we seem to find those people when we get into these needs. So I think this is going to be something we'll be looking at. We'll be talking as we start unpacking the corp over the next couple of years. And there's, you know, our site's a little tight here too with you know, a college football stadium, college hockey arena. You know, we have a lot in this park that we're going to have to deal with. So,
What year was the children's pool added?
You're testing my memory.
70s?
I think it was early 80s.
80s, okay.
I don't know for sure, though. I could figure it out.
This hasn't happened often, but I got unsolicited compliments regarding the pool this year from several people, so I thought, that's great. I wanted to be sure to pass it along because the compliments were what a great pool it was and how much fun people had there, so thank you.
It's great to hear.
So Ann, thank you for the great work again. Sounds like, even with the drop in attendance, still sounds like an outstanding year. So good work,
Yeah.
and kudos to you and your staff.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, agenda item number 6, director's report.
okay, I just have a couple items tonight. I wanted to give an update on where we're standing. So the naming for Sirmer Park has gone through. So you'll notice if you drive by that the Emerson Park sign has been removed. We've started the process to talk about with the donation stuff, when we'll be putting a different sign in and what that'll look like. As a reminder, the sign plan for the city, overall, the directional signs and the park signs were included in that. Through the development and planning office, there's a new look to that slightly. I hope to get you a better schematic so you all can see what that looks like. But basically, all the directional signs you see on the roadway, which will tie into the same theme as the signs and the locations for city municipal buildings and the parks, are different through a process they led. So we're going to try to incorporate that as best we can. But where we're at right now is, now that all the approvals are taken care of, we're working on the kind of contractual items now. What the agreement is with the Friends and the foundation, as well as what the city's not necessarily in this, but what the agreement is for the actual construction. So the timeline we've talked about so far is if that stuff all finishes up through the end of the year, this building would probably start in the spring with an anticipation of trying to finish next year in the summer is what they hope to do, or late summer. So that's where we're at with that. The Park Commission park tour item I put on here was more of a question. I'll take some feedback on. A couple years ago, and I know pre-COVID for sure, we usually did a spring, or I should say a fall tour, where we would get together before the meeting. The last two I think we did, not last year, but the year before that, we had attendance drop a little bit just because of the timeline, people coming from work. So I wanted to just ask if there's interest in doing it again at, say, 5:30 or something, or 6 o'clock as a group, or if you'd prefer to do it during the day where I can lead it, other times. I'm open to either, but if the commission was interested, we certainly could go in October. Usually the weather's decent, and we could visit, things like the Willett and a couple other of our park projects if you want to see the band shell up close, stuff like that. Is the commission interested in that option?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. And is there a certain timeline that works better? Is 5:30 too early or not early enough? Does it matter for anyone from a work conflict or?
Yeah, I think 5:30 is probably better.
Okay.
But I'm the only one. I can make it work if it's earlier.
Okay. All right, we'll see what this special meeting shakes out to be, if we have it and stuff, but otherwise I'll plan on the agenda tentatively that we'll do like a 5:30. If there's anything you'd like to see on the tour, like a certain location, shoot me an email or let me know after the meeting. In my mind, I think we'd probably go to our most recent projects. Maybe we could always stop out at Sirmer Park as well and take a look at the basketball court and the playground and stuff up close too. So, all right, that's what I was going to do at the tour. We'll plan that next month. On the budget items, I just want to give you a heads up that the Finance Committee will be looking at the first kind of rendition of the capital budget for the whole city this coming month here, and I think, well, it's 2 weeks from now, I think already. There's a week. Yeah.
This coming Monday.
This coming Monday, yeah. So that'll be coming out. So how our process works here, as a reminder, is we've got a 5-year capital plan. As we've kind of get things, we put them in there. They get submitted from directors to the comptroller, treasurer, and the mayor. They look through them, prioritize them based on what they can afford, and they kind of review and what makes the cut, what doesn't. What I've seen preliminarily, and the most updated will be in the finance packet, but Groholski Park is really the next big item we have coming. So we have another project. If you remember, when we took that property, we agreed that in 5 years we would clear open the 2 acres in the front, get a parking lot in, a small one, have a little open air pavilion, and I will tell you, we're talking about a solar option there too, just so you know. So I think based on the last conversation with the board, I think there's a lot of interest in that, so we're planning to try to do something with that. So I hope to bring that to you if it makes the capital budget, but right now what I've seen is I think it's going to make it, or it's been recommended based on what the council does. Aside from that, because of there's a lot of asks. I didn't see anything else large ticketed for the Parks Department right now, other than we will be doing the pavilion at Surmar Park, as you know. And we've had, with Gerke finishing up here, we've got plenty going on. It's just we don't have playgrounds and things of that nature in this next year. So when I get the final copy of it, I'll email it out to you all so you can see what we're kind of planning. On the operational budget, the city did receive some additional shared revenue from the state government. So the comptroller's office is working through that process. Typically that follows a month later. So in October usually is when they come with that budget directive for the Finance Committee to look at first. They adopt it in November. What I'm hearing preliminary right now is that we're looking at potentially the discretionary items that directors control up to maybe a 3% increase, with the caveat that as they work through the priorities the Finance Committee set with wages, and there's an election year coming and some other things, that if they couldn't balance the budget, then that we might have to scale that back slightly. So as you know, we've got 0% for I believe 4 years in a row. So it's 3% is not a huge amount of money in our budgets, but it's something. So we're just looking at basically where we've run over different items and trying to prioritize that within our budget. So I'm meeting with the division heads in the department. We'll be submitting that next week, Friday. That'll go in October. So if this works out like normal years, after next week, I'll be sending an email out saying, hey, everyone, this is our capital budget pending council approval based on their Finance Committee discussion. And a month later, I'll come out with the operational budget saying, here's where we're at operationally, again, after Finance Committee approves it. All of that is finalized in November, and then we start the cycle all over. So essentially, if everything goes through, we'll be out for bid in the Grotholski Park project probably as early as January, and then we'll start that construction next year. So if you actually look at our construction cycle, I thought we'd have a light year. We'll have a pavilion going in, we'll have a brand new park development going in, we'll be finishing probably a couple aspects of Gerke Park, and we'll be in the midst of design for the Plover River Crossing. So it's busy. Good things, but it's busy. So kudos to the staff for hanging in with all the stuff we keep throwing. So, but it's all good stuff. So a lot of good news, and again, a lot of positive comments. We're coming to the end of summer, which in a way I like to say, oh, we're taking a breath, but the truth is the Willet is hammering. They're putting ice in. We're just about to get uplifted with all of the, the UWSP, Crystal Ice, Learn to Skate starts in a couple days. So it's busy, and we're trying to button up parks as we lose seasonal staff. One other thing I forgot to mention in the pool that I wanted to call attention to is we rely on seasonal staff. So you saw the photo of the 28, and if you look at that, those are all college students and above, right? So one unique thing that our full-timers and our division heads have to deal with in our department that others don't, we bring people off the street a lot of times, over half usually, that don't know how to work for the city, don't know where things are, don't know how to run equipment, and they have to take them from nothing to make them be proficient seasonal, city employees to represent the city and to perform their job duties. And then they turn them over at the end of the season and start all over again. And if you compare that to the other departments are great departments and they work very hard. I'm not taking anything away, but when you bring a full-time person in, you train them up, you get through the first year, they kind of are with the times. So it's definitely a bigger lift. I think it takes a great deal of skill, and I'm always amazed watching all the new faces come in and how our team really takes them, and I play a very little role in this, I'll be honest with you. I get to say hi to a lot of them, but within a couple weeks they're hitting the ground running. The parks look fantastic, our facilities are open, and then we hit like now and we're bringing a whole new group in. So again, that really comes down to the fact that our full-time employees, our labor force, they take an active role and they're showing people. And our division heads do a lot of paperwork and training on the front end too. So it doesn't get talked about a lot. Seasonals are great, and it's great that we function that way, but there is a lot of skillful effort that does go in from a leadership standpoint for the staff for doing that. So that was one thing I wanted to mention about the pool and our department as a whole. But overall, Parks Department's rocking it. Appreciate everybody's support on it, and we're going to have a busy fall as we head towards the end of the year.
Great. Questions for Director Kramer? All right, well, thank you, everybody, for sticking with us for a meeting tonight. We are at the point where I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
It's going to be your role, isn't it? You got a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.